It is 6:30 p.m. and I call this meeting to order. Please stand and we will recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This is a regularly scheduled meeting of the Winona City Council, and since we are no longer operating under the state emergency procedures, votes will be conducted on a voice call rather than a roll call unless requested by a member. Tonight I have a couple proclamations to make. The first one is a proclamation in regards to Welcoming Week. City of Winona proclamation, whereas our city's success depends on making sure that all people feel welcome here. New residents are a vital part of our community, bringing fresh perspectives and new ideas, starting businesses and contributing to the vibrant diversity that we all value. Whereas this week, we honor the spirit of unity that is bringing neighbors together across the city of Winona. During Welcoming Week, I invite everyone to join this movement of communities nationwide by renewing our commitment to our core American values and by taking action in the spirit of welcoming. By working together, we can achieve greater prosperity and help make Winona the kind of place where diverse people from around the world feel valued and want to put down roots. Whereas, regardless of where we are born or what we look like, we are neighbors, united in our efforts to build a stronger community. By recognizing the contributions that we all make to create a vibrant culture and a growing economy, we make our community more prosperous and more inclusive to all who call it home. Whereas, let us come together to build communities where every resident has the opportunity to contribute at their best. Let us come together to create more prosperous communities and to reaffirm that Minnesota still stands as a beacon of freedom and opportunity. I call upon the people of Winona to join together to build stronger communities across the region. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the City Council of Winona, Minnesota, that we hereby proclaim Winona, Minnesota part of the Welcoming Network, and will join Welcoming America to support the work of welcoming in the city. Now, therefore, I, Mayor Scott Sherman, hereby proclaim the week of September 10th, 2021 as Welcoming Week in the city of Winona, and encourage all current residents to extend a warm welcome to new residents in our community. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the city of Winona to be affixed the 7th day of September 2021. We do have Fatima Saeed here from Project Fine, and she'd like to say a few words.
Good evening, everyone, Mayor, City Council members. I just want to say congratulations and thank you for continue this welcoming in our community. As a newcomer myself, I feel privileged to have opportunity to live and work here. Now, for all these 6 years, guys, City of Winona has been a leading partner of Project Fine to celebrate Welcoming Week. So I hope that next week you all will join us, especially our bike ride with Mayor, and then celebration of our new citizens in our community. And as we all know, the goodwill build community, or neighbor to neighbor. And we hope that you all will come and celebrate with us. Welcoming Week is a week where we recognize contribution of refugee and immigrants in our region. And as you all know, we have a great population in this community that work hard and that want to feel we belong. So thank you so much, congratulations, and come to celebrate with us next week. Thank you.
Thank you, Fatima. We appreciate it. My second proclamation tonight is in regards to the Kiwanis Club of Winona, the Sunrisers Day. City of Winona proclamation, whereas Kiwanis International is a global community of clubs, members, and partners with more than 550,000 members in more than 80 countries. And whereas the members of the Kiwanis Club of Winona Sunrisers, including Kiwanis clubs around the world, are volunteers dedicated to changing the world one child and one community at a time. Whereas in addition to improving the lives of children in the Winona community, the Kiwanis Sunrisers Club is devoted to promoting the development of community leaders, positive role models, and opportunities for fellowship, personal growth, professional development, and community service. And whereas the Kiwanis Club of Winona Sunrisers projects include providing reading books to all the pre-kindergarten and kindergarten children in all schools, public and private, in the Winona School District, give financial support to special athletic competitions, Big Brothers Big Sisters, back to school backpacks, Winona Volunteer Services, and other worthy causes, has provided a 4-H'er of the month recognition for over 30 years and conducts a Christmas tree pickup in the community each year. Whereas the Kiwanis Club of Winona Sunrisers was officially chartered as a club by Kiwanis International on September 14th, 1971, and is this year celebrating its 50th anniversary. Now, therefore, I, Mayor Scott Sherman, hereby proclaim September 14th, 2021 as Kiwanis Club of Winona Sunrisers Day, and hereby call upon all citizens, officials of the Winona community to render support to the members of this organization and to make themselves aware of Kiwanis International and the Kiwanis Club of Winona. Kiwanis Club of Winona Sunrisers, whose members this day are providing meaningful service to children and to citizens in our community. In witness hereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the city of Winona to be affixed this 7th day of September, 2021. We'll hand it over to Steve Sarvey, City Manager, for his comments.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a reminder that City Hall and city offices are back to regular time. So back open 8 o'clock till 4:30. Thank you.
Thank you. I will now ask the city clerk to take roll call.
Mayor Scott Sherman.
Here.
Councilmember Steve Young.
Here.
Eileen Moeller. Michelle Alexander. Here. Pam Iden. Here. George Borzakowski.
Here.
Aaron Rapinski.
Here.
Under the required public hearings.
Tonight we'll be having 2 public hearings. For each public hearing, staff will make a short presentation and then I will ask if anyone from the public wishes to speak to the matter. You must clearly state your name and address, and you will be given up to 3 minutes to make your testimony. I will call 3 times for public comments. Once the hearing is closed, the public may not participate in any discussion by the city council.
Item 2.1 is to consider vacating the northerly portion of Franklin Street by Bay State Milling.
I will now open the public comment period. Oh, I'm sorry. We'll start with Ryan from engineering. Sorry.
Yeah, so this is just a request from Bay State Milling to request to vacate the northern portion of Franklin Street, north of the alley, north of 2nd Street to the northern end of Franklin. The request is for the purposes of improving their internal trucking operations. City-wise, we have water and storm sewer facilities, so we would need to maintain an easement. Other than that, we do not have a need for any city purposes there.
Now I will open for public comment. Does anyone from the public wish to speak on this matter?
Just one question before you open that, Mayor.
Go ahead.
I believe Bay State is probably the only people that use that part of the street, correct?
Yes, that is correct. They own each side of the street and the north end of the
Right.
street.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, George.
Mr. Mayor, if I could ask, so then we wouldn't have to plow it or maintain it. It's their deal. We just have easement for utilities.
That is correct.
Okay, good.
Thank you, Steve. Any other questions from council? All right, now I will open it to public comment. Does anybody care to wish to speak on this topic? Second time, does anyone wish to speak regarding the vacating of the northerly portion of Franklin Street? And once more, does anybody from the public wish to speak? Hearing none, public hearing is closed.
I'd make a motion to introduce the attached ordinance.
Second.
We have a motion from Michelle, a second from Pam. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Item 2.2 is the appeal of a decision by the Board of Adjustment by Mitchell Walsh.
I will reread the public hearing portion of this, and we have to follow a specific protocol tonight regarding this public hearing. For each public hearing, staff will make a short presentation, and then I will ask if anyone from the public wishes to speak to the matter. You must clearly state your name and address, and you will be given up to 3 minutes to make your testimony. I will call 3 times for public comments. Once the hearing is closed, the public may not participate in any discussion by the council. Tonight, we'll start off with Lucy McMartin from Community Development.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. What I'd like to do is just give a little bit of history. Before you tonight is simply an extension of time, but I thought I would provide a timeline since it went over a period of time. The area we're talking about at 51 Riverview Drive at one time was owned by Dennis and Donna Daniels. They had an Ace Hardware store, and then they had the remnant property to the north. When they retired, they sold their business and they put this parcel of land up for sale for quite some time. And Whitewater Properties purchased it in April of 2020. They came before the Board of Adjustment in September of 2020 for a height variance. They wanted a building of 53 feet and it was denied. The city received an appeal and the council approved the height variance effective November 2nd of 2020. Now, variances are only good for 1 year. Mwf Properties is a housing developer. They have 1,000 some units in the Midwest. And they had been in communication with our office for a number of years because they wanted to provide affordable housing. They had done this in other communities. In January of 2021, they communicated to us that they were interested in the site at 51 Riverview Drive and had an agreement to purchase this if they in fact received an allocation of housing tax credits from Minnesota Housing. In June of 2021, the Port Authority supported the project and recommended approval to the City Council for development of a housing TIF. On June 21st, the City Council approved creating that housing TIF and provided a letter of support to Minnesota Housing for funding the project at Riverview Drive. On July 15th, 2021, the application was submitted. Whitewater Properties requested an extension for the variance in August of 2021. And the reason for this is the announcement for tax credits is not made until December typically, and sometimes even the following spring. The request for the extension of time was denied, and now before you tonight is this issue to extend the time for the height of the building that was previously approved by council. I'd like to add that we have no site plans at this time. No building plans have been submitted. There are some informational pieces in your packet, but typically a developer will wait until all of the financing pieces are in place. Thus, the December 2020 outcome, we would normally know then what the path forward is. So they have yet to submit their site plan, but we have an idea of the layout and so forth. And with that, I just would defer to Carlos on the rest of the technicalities on the appeal.
We're gonna actually go over to Chris Hood. He's gonna make a quick statement about this process for us. Chris, are you available? He's our attorney.
I am, Mayor and Council. Just very briefly. So in the agenda item tonight, the staff memo, there's a specific hearing procedure for this particular hearing tonight. And it gives each of the parties, the appellant, who would be Whitewater Properties, and the Board of Adjustment, as well as city staff, an opportunity to present, as well as allowing public comment. So that hearing procedure that is in your packet has a specific process that we will go through for each of these parties to present, and then you as council can certainly ask questions after each of the presenters, but you should reserve any, I guess, comments or opinions on the actual disposition of the matter until we get to item number 13, if you're looking at the agenda item or the staff memo, where we get to council deliberations. So that we would have the presentations, there would be questions from council for each of the parties, and then the mayor would close the appeal public hearing record. And then at that point, it would be appropriate for council to deliberate on the subject, express your opinions, concerns, findings that you have related to it. And then obviously consider the one of the alternatives, and there are two alternatives in the resolution that's been provided, to affirm the Board of Adjustment decision. Affirming the Board of Adjustment decision would be a denial of the request for a variance, and the variance request is for a period of 1 year. And just as background on variances, variances are something that when they're granted, they run with the land, and they are perpetual as long as they are implemented within the time period provided by code. And code basically says that in order to have a variance continue and not otherwise expire, that variance has to either construction of the building has to begin within that 1 year period of time, or the land use that the variance has been allowed has to be initiated. In this case, construction of the building would have had to have occurred within that 1 year period of time. Otherwise, it expires on November 2, 2022. Again, the applicant is seeking an extension of that time period to November 2, 2022. So with that, Mayor, I'll conclude my remarks. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Chris. All right, now we'll hear from Carlos Espinoza, City Planner.
Thank you, Mayor. Evening, Mayor and council members. I am sharing my screen right now that shows 51 Riverview Drive and the location of it in our city. It is located at the bend where Riverview Drive meets Huff Street. To the north is the railroad tracks and the Mississippi River. To the west is a light industrial and office building. To the south is a Chrysler dealership. And to the east is the Interstate Bridge project that is complete along with currently vacant parcels. As Community Development Director McMartin noted, the original variance request was for a 53-foot tall multifamily residential structure at 51 Riverview Drive, and that was approved by council on November 2nd of 2020. City code sets a 1 year deadline, but allows for a 1 year extension. The applicant submitted the extension request in June of this year. On August 4th, the Board of Adjustment denied the extension request, citing council as the appropriate body to decide on the extension since council approved the original variance. The applicant then appealed the denial of the Board of Adjustment on August 9th and brought us to the hearing tonight. The code provision that allows variance extensions is the following. Upon request by the applicant, the Board of Adjustment, or City Council in this case, may grant a 1 year extension of time for a variance approval. The city may decline to grant an extension if there has been a change in circumstances affecting the property, or if there are other reasons to justify the denial. A change in circumstance may be an approved modification to the comprehensive plan, substantial changes to the surrounding development pattern, or other items as determined by the city. Related to these criteria and this section of code, staff included a memo to the Board of Adjustment when it was considering the variance extension. That memo is dated July 26, 2021, and it is included in your packets. It notes that from staff's perspective, there has not been a change in circumstances for the property related to the comprehensive plan or changes in the surrounding development pattern since the variance was approved. So since November 2nd of last year, there has not been a change to the comprehensive plan. Even though we are working on an updated comprehensive plan, we continue to operate under the existing adopted 2007 comprehensive plan at this time. And second, the surrounding development pattern is essentially the same as it is now. We were aware of the Fastenal development and the new office building being constructed at that time, even though it wasn't as far along in the process as it is at this point in time. Also, staff noted that a building with the same relative number of units, approximately 60, is still being proposed at the approved 53-foot height and must comply with all other applicable city requirements through the site plan review process. And that's what Community Development Director McMartin alluded to, that with the variances and different land use approvals, they apply to the project in general. Specific details such as parking, emergency access, and building design standards will be considered and reviewed and applied at the site plan review process period. So that happens a little bit later on down the line. As a result, council's more narrow focus is simply should the decision of the Board of Adjustment to deny the variance extension be affirmed or overruled. And as a city attorney mentioned, there are two options in front of council tonight. The first is to affirm and amend the decision of the BOA that would allow the variance to expire on November 2nd of this year. For this option, there are two ways that council may go. Each requires council to discuss specific findings related to the affirmed and amended decision of the BOA. The second option is to overrule the decision of the Board of Adjustment and allow the extension to November 2nd, 2022 next year. For this option, is recommended that council adopt the resolution attached in your packets and select alternative 2. Thank you.
Thank you, Carlos. Now the appellant shall have the opportunity to be heard by the city council. If you could state your name and address, that would be great. Thank you.
My name is Mitchell Walsh, 20687 County Road 33, Altura, Minnesota. So I've been trying to go through the Board of Adjustments, get a height variance so I can have a 4th floor that matches parking and the use of the property. Being in that 50 range feet, you're still transitioning from the lower height of Winona into the downtown, which, if I recall, it's 75 feet. We're still meeting the height or the building, the parking requirements. I've, wondered why Winona has never had any riverfront property or housing. You look at La Crosse, you look at Wabasha, you look at Lake City, they all have housing along the river. I think it's definitely something that the town needs. Looking at the housing study, we still need more units. I think this would be a great benefit to the city of Winona, as well as downtown Winona being right outside of downtown. Does anybody have any questions for me or?
I do. Why the extension? Like what was the delay in the past year?
So I have a ton of work invested into it already with engineering. Since then, you've had building prices go up and skyrocket. MWF has contacted me to purchase it. Either way, I would still like to pursue if they don't purchase it. So we kind of need the extension if they were to go through with it.
So primarily it's been late, materials costs was the big holdup.
Yeah,
Okay.
materials and logistics and engineering.
Okay.
Yeah.
George?
Now, Mr. Walsh, you originally bought the property, or what's your connection with Whitewater property? Is that you or?
I'm the sole owner of Whitewater Properties.
Whitewater Properties, okay. And I think just for a comment for ourselves here to make sure that we keep focused on tonight is the extension of the variance for the height restriction, correct? There's nothing else to be talked about what you're going to do, the variance for the height restriction. And I hope we just keep it focused to that because that's the issue before us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, George. Any other council questions or comments? Okay. Thank you, Mitchell. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
We'll now open the public hearing for other interested persons not already having spoken to be heard, provided however that such testimony is limited to the issue on appeal and does not repeat testimony already presented by the appellant.
Hi, Ryan Schwickert, 3251 Louisiana Avenue South, St. Louis Park, Minnesota. I'm here representing MWF Properties for the developer that has a option to purchase the site. I guess did a great job discussing the timeline and everything, so I won't really go back into that. But my main point I wanted to bring up was without this variance, our project for affordable housing here will probably not move forward. And the council approved the resolution of support for this project, and as well as support for tax increment financing. So I guess it would just seem counterintuitive to support the project, but then deny the variance, which would effectively kill the project. So I really hope you guys support this variance and can overturn the denial. And I can answer any questions too if you wanted about the project.
Very good. Do we have any questions from council?
If I could ask, please. Hi, I'm Steve. Thank you for coming. Hey, just so I understand this, in my packet here, I've got a page 33. I got a site plan. Is it just kind of a placeholder for now, or just kind of a dream, or a?
Nope, that's our current site plan. We still, as was mentioned, we have to go in for our building permit if this were to go forward.
Right.
And then a more detailed site plan with all the other bells and whistles of the architectural engineering would be.
So this is likely how the building would sit,
That's
maybe
correct.
with some minor
Unless,
modifications.
during our plan review, the city came back with certain modifications that needed to happen. That we weren't, conforming to the city code, or
Right.
some access wasn't adequate, so.
And you're still bound to a site review,
Correct.
as discussed. Okay,
Correct.
thank you. But this schematic I'm seeing is likely how this is going to sit and look.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. That helps.
Thank you, Steve. City Manager Steve, sorry.
Just a question for you. We heard testimony before from the landowner about construction prices. Could you speak more to your financing issues and the fact that it's going to take you a little while to hear back from the state, and how critical that is to the success of the project?
Yep, that's a good question. So as was mentioned, this is for affordable housing. It's financed by tax credits through federal government, which is allocated through Minnesota Housing. Each state has their own state agency. We applied for these tax credits in July. We hear back in December. If we're awarded, we move forward and likely break ground in the spring. Construction pricing, the increased construction pricing is a real thing, and that has impacted a lot of our current projects. But as this is a new project, we underwrote and estimated for the higher construction pricing in our application. So if we are awarded credits, the high cost of construction will already be built into our numbers, so that won't be an issue.
I guess just to follow up, it's fair to say if you would have had the financing arranged last year, you would have broken ground. More than likely.
I'm sorry?
The financing is a key element to you being able to move forward.
Oh, besides this, that's the only other
Right.
issue.
So again, had you had the financing, this variance extension wouldn't have been required.
I believe so. I guess
Yeah.
I don't want to speak.
More than likely.
More than,
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it had something, if it was a similar product, which this is, then I believe there wouldn't have to be a re-approval
Right.
process, but I can't speak to that. I believe, yes, it could have moved forward.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from council? No? Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Appreciate it. Does anyone else from the public wish to speak? Does anyone else from the public wish to speak?
Good morning, or good morning. Good afternoon, good evening, council. My name is Michael Onstead. The address is 707.5 West Broadway Street. I was hoping I could hide behind Zoom today. I'm a little caught off guard with my outfit and my COVID 30. But I own 330 West 2nd Street. It's an old Sears building, prior Fetch Daycare. I've been with Mitch on this, supporting him on his project over the last year. I attended a lot of the variance request meetings, and I'm just here to support it. I'm directly behind them, and I think it'd be a great neighbor to have. and have this property occur, this project occur at that property. So I just wanted to say here, I'm here to support it. So thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Does anyone else from the public wish to speak on this matter? Does anyone else wish to speak specifically to the decision of the Board of Adjustment? Okay, one more time. Does anybody wish to speak to this particular matter? Okay, hearing none, we will close the appeal public hearing and evidentiary record. All right, next step, additional questions of city staff and city attorney on the appeal process and any deliberations if needed. Go ahead, Michelle.
To the city staff. To the city staff. I think some of us have received emails or phone calls over the course of the last little bit of time. And I just want to clarify and confirm that all of the issues regarding site map, fire access, parking, or bike, whatever we're going to allow their part of code is still going to go through review, and anything that needs to a variance will still go through that process. If the planning commission needs to weigh in, it'll still go through that process. So this is strictly to reaffirm the height requirements, and the rest of the things that have been of concern maybe to the Board of Adjustment from reading their minutes or to the community will be addressed by staff and the site map review in the future.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Carlos. Anyone else have comments or questions? Okay, any council deliberation? I believe this is when we're allowed to speak as to how we might vote. Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, I can express my opinion on this. I would take a little bit more expansive view of the council's prerogative with this. We are being, I'm looking on page 4 here that we have 4 different, under option alternative 1, that we have 4 different possible reasons that we could affirm the Board of Adjustment's decision from August 4th. Yet it's so I'm at this point I can deliberate and
I believe
talk about how I feel about this.
No.
Do we
Not there
need,
yet?
Yes,
need
you-
motion?
yes, you can, but you might want a motion.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Just
Mayor.
mention that in the steps
Yep.
that we have under number 9 to hear from the Board of Adjustment. And we do have members here
Okay.
from the Board of Adjustment.
All right, I'll backtrack here.
And so I just wanted to clarify, they may wish to designate one of their members of that commission
Very good.
to provide comment as noted on number 9.
Okay, yep, I will do that. All right, so now,
Run 9.
yep, we're on number 9 now. I had a list that was not correct.
Rewind.
Any BOA members that would like to give a presentation, you may now do so. You'll have 5 minutes. Hi, Tim, if you could name, give us your name and address, please.
My name is Tim Breza. I live at 2 Washington Street, number 201. I am a member of the Board of Adjustment. I have 2 other members of the Board of Adjustment that are here with me this evening. And thank you for this opportunity to present. Good evening, Your Honor and fellow council members. I appreciate this to be able to present some of the history of the Board of Adjustment. Back in 2018, the council revisited height restrictions for downtown Winona and fringe area. Just 3 years later, we're having a request come before us to modify those same height restrictions in just 3 years. We have the comprehensive plan, which is going to be reviewed, and that probably is the most appropriate time to look at changing height restrictions. Presently, this particular building is not zoned to use. It exceeds the height restrictions. Initially, when this came before us, before the Board of Adjustment, there was a request for 70 feet in height. Board of Adjustment declined that request, that particular variance, of which there were 3. And then a request came back for a 53 height variance. In that particular zone, 40 feet is what is the maximum that is present. So that's just a very quick thumbnail of why we're here before us now. The appellate would like to still go back and have 53 feet of height. For the sake of reference to the Board of Adjustment, with 3 variances, I said, were required of us. The first one was setback requirements, setback from the roadway and the rest of that. We approved that. We gave an okay to that. The Board of Adjustment was asked about parking. We again went back and approved that, in spite of the fact that we had reservations about parking on number of parking spaces available, and consequently, would there be on-street parking? And would that on-street parking occur on Harriet Street? And would it infringe upon the parking for Winona ambulance service? Still, we okayed it. Now we're back to that height variance request. We have, as I said previously, not approved that variance, and it's come back before the council to make a decision on that. But you have a preliminary site plan in front of you on your packets. You've looked at that. After looking at that site plan, you can go back and approve that, but there are some concerns which are you cannot directly address, but still are valid. One is safety. With a building of 70 feet, 53 feet, or even 40 feet, you're going to create basically a blind intersection at that roadway. Imagine, if you will, you're driving down Riverview and going to turn on Huff. You're driving 40 miles an hour and immediately have to, within 1 block, go to 25. I know human nature, and I know a lot of drivers, they won't do that. That particular intersection has already had 9 fatalities. I bet they were going in the other direction. But 9 deaths at that intersection is 9 deaths. The second point about that I'd like to make is the safety aspect of fire and emergency services. If you look at that same schematic that you have, and you look at the egress and how you're going to get in and out, it's not so straightforward with the number of parking spaces that you have. There is no fire lane there. Obviously, in the review by the Planning Commission and others, there will have to be. But that's going to cut down on parking, and that's going to push parking into other areas, probably unintended. Looking at that same way to get in and out, I noticed on a later drawing, and I don't know if it's reflected in the schematic that you have, but there was another entrance for parking. but it didn't take any parking spaces away. Still the same number. And when you have an emergency situation, how are you going to evacuate that building, or how are you going to access the fire that's there? God forbid. If you have to access that from the north side, you're going to have to cross the railroad tracks to be able to do that. It's possible. You can have a ladder truck extend all the way over those tracks and do a rescue if such be the case. It'd be difficult to do it from Huff Street. You would have just a narrow access to one end of the building, and the same is true over on Harriet. So that leaves the south side with tens and tens and tens of cars parked, and you're trying to have rescue apparatus maneuver in between that. That's the side effect. But yet, is it valid? Does it deserve consideration? I think it does.
Thank you, Tim.
Oh, just one
Oh,
second.
sorry.
Long-winded, yes.
Yeah, no sweat.
The Board of Adjustment has twice denied this, and it's come back before you now. And I would request that you deny an extension of their timeline. There will be other times that they can bring an issue back to you, which is more fitting. And thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Tim. Does anyone have questions of our Board of Adjustment? Tim, could you answer some questions?
Sure.
Thank you. Go ahead, Pam.
Okay, you have mentioned some, hi, Tim. Yeah, you have mentioned some very serious issues. And I would like to know, have these issues been resolved by either a kind of change in the plan or a change in the number of units or the height? You're talking about parking and you're talking about traffic. These are very concerning to me. I voted for this. I voted for this last year. I voted for this development this year. I'm feeling a little bit more uneasy, especially the issues you've raised.
And your question?
Have these concerns been met?
Carlos, could you touch on those?
Sure. So concerns about parking, fire access, those are specific issues that we would address at the site plan process, and they would be required to adhere to city code. So regardless of how the building is currently situated, if the fire department doesn't feel that they can provide safe coverage of it, they will require it to be changed so that fire access is provided for the structure. In addition, the parking that's required, it was updated in 2017 per code standards and is one space per unit. And the applicant right now does comply with that with 60 parking spaces for 60 units.
And Ms. Iden, I would make mention of the fact that there are a number of different units, 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units in that particular building. And if you've got a 3 bedroom apartment, I would just guessing that you probably have more than one car. And where do those cars go? It's a matter of the old proverbial, you squeeze the balloon and they're going to go someplace. And my personal concern is that that will impinge upon servicing that particular area. Are there any other questions I might answer?
Mayor, I have a quick question.
Go ahead, Aaron.
And I guess this is directed toward you and Carlos. And after listening to my fellow council person next to me, I'm hearing and understanding that all of these issues that Tim brought up will be looked at by fire, by police, by that, and that'll all have to pass state, city codes.
Correct.
So, any reservations I have of saying, well, I'm going to worry about fire stuff. I don't have to worry about that.
That's correct. It will be
Okay.
addressed at a
Okay.
future review process.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
And Councilman, might I rebut a little bit?
My question's answered.
Okay, thanks.
Pam, you had another question?
Yes, what you said about the drivers coming around the corner and the number of accidents that have happened there. The sketch that I saw does seem to place the building very close to the road.
Absolutely.
That is a concern for me, yes. The height issue is not necessarily a concern for me. I voted for it last year, but that close to the road and people traveling that fast, I'm not sure. Is there any flexibility in the plan for adjustment of the adjustment of the position of the building, and would that happen at site plan phase?
Sure. So the requirement is actually a maximum setback. So if they want to put the building up a little bit closer, they can. One thing that they have done to eliminate potential conflicts is the original application that came to the Board of Adjustment had an ingress egress onto Riverview Drive or Huff Street for this project.
Right.
That's been eliminated. So there would not be any vehicular ingress or egress out of the project as proposed onto Riverview Drive.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? George?
Yeah, just a couple of comments. That intersection, I'm looking at Huff Street and Second Street. As I make my right on Riverview Drive, I am, of course, in the travel lane going west. And of course, the other people are in the travel lane coming east. And of course, that railroad track across there, that is a switch track. That is not a main line track where Amtrak and CP, they're sailing through, they're 90 miles an hour. You mentioned about the accidents, yes, which I'm very much, aware of those things happening out there. But the intersection right now is wide open and we're having these accidents. Now, of course, it's been rebuilt, reconstructed again, wider shoulders and things. And I'm hoping the only way an accident's going to happen is if I'm going to fall asleep and go into the opposite lane. As far as just traveling east to west, I do not really see a problem, even if the building is there. I don't really see nothing really that unsafe on that road. And a question I've come up before, was the Army Corps of Engineers questioned about building this structure? I know I asked it last time. I don't know if there was a response to that. They're not being close to the dike.
And that's something that we would look at through the site plan review process.
So let's say when they come with the site plan, if this gets passed, and then tonight, again, we're only talking about the height. That's what we're a variance for, the height of the building, nothing else tonight with that. If the site plan comes in and the site plan is rejected, then what?
Then they would not be able to get the building permit that they need to construct the structure. So the
Okay,
project would not happen.
Okay, so there would be no construction, nothing whatsoever until the site plan is approved.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
George, just as a little aside, I live near that intersection at Second and Huff, and I know how fast those cars come around the corner. I was in the middle of that intersection when I was struck by an oncoming car that was coming around the corner trying to beat the light. And I was in the intersection.
Oh.
And I have personal concerns.
No, I agree with that. Like I said, how do I control how somebody drives? I know I got to go 25.
You
You're
should.
coming, yeah, I should. You're coming through there 50 miles an hour. I can't stop that.
No.
So just a question, Tim, how the Washington building that you live in, how tall is that building?
That's 4 stories. 1, 2, 3, 4, that's 5 stories. But I am within the downtown core area. We're talking about a building here that is outside of the core area. And that's the big difference, because what is permitted and not permitted, and what's being asked of this variance, and all 3 of those requests that came before us were to exceptions to the downtown core area. They want the same standards of the downtown core area to be applicable outside that area. And that is a significant reason why it's having trouble being passed.
May I have one question? And so what's the line between Freighter Malt that has a much higher building than the 53 foot? And if it's in that same area?
That area is actually zoned I2.
Okay, so that's industrial too instead of fringe downtown?
Yep, and we have a special exception for things like silos when they're needed for industrial applications like that.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions at all?
Anything else, Your Honor?
I think we're good. Thank you, Tim. Appreciate it very much. Okay, now we're moving on to number 11. And we'll be now officially closing the appeal public hearing and evidentiary record. Any other questions of city staff or city attorney on the appeal process or any deliberations? No? Okay. Number 13, now council deliberations. The city council may discuss and deliberate on the substantive issue on appeal.
I make a motion to overrule the decision of the BOA and allow for the variance height to continue until November 2nd, 22, and adopt the attached resolution selecting alternative 2 as well as the exhibits A through G and the council minutes A through B.
I'll second that.
We have a motion from Michelle, a second from Aaron. Any discussion at all? Go ahead, George.
Thank you, Mayor. When this first came to us here a year ago, 2 years ago, what year ago, I voted for it, and I believe the majority of the council voted for it. This past weekend, I went over this stuff, met with some members, and went through all these things, and I had a lot of questions that I was going to ask tonight, but they were already answered by Lucy and Carlos. One of my questions is that, when we first agreed to this variant, granted that, why such a long timeline before even a spade of dirt got turned over? And of course, yes, something I did not consider, I have considered, but I never gave the cost of building materials a thought. And yes, they are very, very high, and a lot of projects have been rolled back or not done at all because of that. As I looked at this and, went through it in discussion and things that, the questions that there were legitimate answers to about the financing, all those things. I always say you got to have finance before you do anything. I can build a $500,000 house. If the bank's only going to give me $75,000, I guess I'm not going anywhere. So with that said, and just like I said, I looked it over this weekend, met with people on this, and I will be in support of this tonight.
Thank you, George.
Mayor.
Steve, go ahead.
Yeah.
I'll get you in a second.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to thank our friends on the Board of Adjustments that have spent time and work on this. And I've heard from some of them, and I appreciate their input. I feel the what's best for Winona is alternative number 2, that we overturn the order of the BOA and we proceed with this building. Housing, and especially workforce housing, is critically important to the future of our city. And it is within our best interest to move forward.
Thank you, Steve. Aaron, go ahead.
I just want to comment after hearing, that EMS, fire service safety will all be addressed by city planning. I'm in agreement with overruling and the council adopting alternative 2. Also, it's supported by the landowner adjacent to it. Past city council has approved it. There's no change in circumstance for property on the comp plan. I don't know how we couldn't. So I'm in support of it.
Okay. Thank you, Aaron. Michelle?
I just want to thank the BOA also. I understand their concerns, and I think it's important that they are made public so they can be addressed through the site plan review and any other variances that may come up. But I think, which has been stated multiple times, this is strictly a conversation of height. And I didn't have a problem a year ago. I know that when we were doing the Unified Development Code and talking about requirements for downtown, we arbitrarily drew a line on where the downtown ended. And it is something that might be addressed as part of the comprehensive plan, but 53 at that location, that height doesn't seem out of keeping with that neighborhood, which is primarily business. I think it actually will add some value to the location, and I certainly should look better than a empty field of, forgive me, Mitch, weed grass. I think having a development there will be great for the community, and 53 doesn't concern me. If it was really a height issue for safety, I would assume that any building there would be a problem. 40 feet wouldn't be any easier to see around from a driver perspective than 53 or 70. So I'm sure that that concern can be addressed during the site map review if it becomes something that needs to be addressed. But on the whole, I am hopeful that the Minnesota Finance Housing Administration, whatever that acronym is, will approve that TIF that we, as the port and the council, supported. And the project will finally break ground and we'll see some movement in that location.
Thank you, Michelle. Go ahead, Pam.
Yes, I too will support the motion tonight. I think all of my concerns will come up at the site plan time. I haven't heard any mention tonight of the possibility of aesthetics of this building, but although it's outside the downtown, technical downtown area, I would hope that all of the standards of the downtown area would apply. There are a lot of really ugly apartment buildings in town, and I would really prefer that not be parked right at the edge of the river. So that's the site plan phase. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam. I've been watching this since I think Mitch first approached BOA on this, and I've watched it through BOA, I've watched it through council. And if I take a step back and I look at it as a citizen, as someone who maybe doesn't have knowledge of the zoning or ordinances or past plan or future plan, I kind of look at downtown, and like Michelle had stated, there's kind of this arbitrary line of where downtown ends. And then I look across and I see the silos and I see Solvay and I see how tall those buildings are. And in between, it's just kind of the saddle in between tall buildings over here and over here. And as I look at it, I see opportunity for the downtown to potentially grow at some point. And I look at our greatest needs. Right now, one of our greatest needs is housing, and this would fit into helping with some of those needs. I also look at the lay of the land, and I look at the river. Anybody would love to live right on the river there and be able to look out and get to see that wonderful view that we all appreciate. In turn, Michelle made good points about the height, whether it's 40 or 53, you're still going to have a sightline issue potentially. Steve made good points. Honestly, y'all made good points on this. And since we are specifically looking at height only tonight, I also have concerns about parking, safety. Being a bicycle rider myself and commuter, I would like to find some way to encourage people to ride bikes or use alternative transportation or walk. And those are potential means of transportation to help reduce the number of cars in that parking lot eventually. So based on height, and when I look at the whole area, I don't see it as necessarily being out of place. The Board of Adjustment has, and I'm using the wrong term here, but essentially 5 guiding principles that they use when they go through each variance. And I believe that that creates to a certain degree, an impartial decision by the Board of Adjustment each time they vote on a variance. So as everybody else stated, thank you to the Board of Adjustment for going through that process now twice. I trust your decisions, and I believe based on the minutes that from that last denial of that variance extension, I think Board of Adjustment was doing their due diligence and their job on it. So thank you for that. I will support this height variance as well. And with that, any other comments at all? With that, we have a motion on the table. And the motion is to overrule the decision, and the extension will be in place until November 2 of 2022. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Next up, under the petitions, requests, and communications, item 3.1 is the reappointment to the Human Rights Commission of Rachel Heim.
Move to approve that appointment.
Second.
We have a motion from George, a second from Michelle. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Item 3.2 is the temporary wine and malt liquor licenses for Hurryback Productions for the 3 dates and the 3 different organizations listed.
Make a motion to approve those license.
Second.
We have a motion from Michelle, a second from Aaron. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Item 3.3 is a sign request for the National Life Chain.
Make a motion to approve that request.
Second.
Motion from Michelle, second from Steve. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Item 3.4 is the request for Dine Out Downtown to extend by 1 block on September 10th.
Move to approve that request.
Second.
We have a motion from George. I'll take the second from Aaron. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Item 3.5 is a request for the Color Dash by Winona Health to be held on Saturday, October 2nd.
Make a motion to approve the license agreement and
Second.
closure of Parks Avenue.
We have a motion from Michelle and a quick second from Aaron. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Item 3.6 is a request for handicap parking to be added on Johnson Street by the Winona Public Library.
And make a motion to introduce the attached ordinance.
Second.
Motion from Michelle, second from Pam. Any discussion? Wait for George here.
No, we're good. I'll wait for it.
Ready? Slowing down my meeting here, buddy. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Item 3.7 is a request for handicap parking to be added on King Street.
Move to introduce the attached ordinance.
Second.
Motion from George, a second from Michelle. Any discussion? Ryan, I do have a question. The documents we received, it says the handicap parking will be 68 feet east of Jefferson to 20 feet east of Jefferson. Is that 48 feet of handicap parking I'm looking at?
Nope, that'd be 68 feet east and then 20 feet east. 20 feet east from that 68-foot mark. So it'd be a 20-foot stall there.
Okay, gotcha. Very good. I read that wrong. Thank you. Any other comments, discussion? Go ahead, George.
No, they need to purchase a permit for this, correct? Or a license?
They will have to submit the payment for the sign fee.
And what is the charge of that?
$105.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Item 3.8 is a request for stop signs on Kansas at the intersection of King Street.
Make a motion to introduce the attached ordinance.
Second.
Sorry, Pam.
We have a motion from Michelle, a second from Steve. Any questions or comments, discussion?
Wow.
Could I briefly speak on
Go
this?
ahead,
I'm
Steve,
very
please.
familiar with this intersection. I drive it several times per week. My daughter lives kitty corner to this. The sight lines are really tight.
Yeah.
It's needed.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Anyone else? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Under new business, item 5.1 is the joint powers agreements with the Minnesota BCA.
Make a motion to approve the attached resolution with the 4 attached agreements.
I'll second that.
We have a motion by Michelle, a second from George. Any discussion?
One just isn't good enough.
Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Item 5.2 is the updated Minnesota Department of Transportation limited use permit for the non-motorized trail on the southeast edge of the Fleet Farm parking lot.
I'd make a motion to approve the attached resolution authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute the limited use permit.
I will second that.
We have a motion by Michelle, a second from George. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
And item 5.3 is the Riverview Drive project certification of completion and final estimate.
I'd make a motion to approve the attached resolution and authorize the final estimate for payment, I guess.
I'll second that.
Motion from Michelle, a second from Aaron. Any discussion? Go ahead, George.
Yes, Riverview Drive looks very nice, and now that that white line is moved over to give this, that 3-foot white line, which gives the semi drivers more room going down that road, and there's still enough time to walk and ride and motorcycle and all that, so job well done.
Ryan, real quick, how much of this was grants?
I believe this is all federal grant money.
Okay.
I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was a heavy truck route grant or something along those lines.
Sure, federal transportation
Yep.
grant, I believe. Great, thank you. Any other questions or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Item 5.4 is the DNR Shade Tree Bonding Grant Acceptance.
I'd make a motion to approve or proceed with the grant and execute and have the mayor and clerk execute the agreement.
We have a motion from Michelle, a second from Pam. Any questions or discussion? We do have John Howard here. Go
Yeah,
ahead, George.
what is our, where, there, John, what is our cost for this project from the city itself?
The mayor and council, the city is required to provide a match, which we'll be doing because we'll be planting the trees, so using staff time. So there will be no financial dollars that will be expended, but there is a staff match that I believe is 25% requirement. And just through our natural course of caring for the trees, planting the trees, we would meet that easily.
And this is 24,300 over each year over 3 years?
That is the total of the grant.
Oh, that's the total of the
So
whole
it's-
grant.
Yep. So
Okay,
over
so-
3 years, we can spend that amount.
So roughly 8,000 a year.
Correct.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you, George. John, again, you're bringing grants to us almost every single meeting. Keep it up. Great work. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Any other comments or discussion? Go ahead, Pam.
I had an opportunity to visit La Crosse. I went down to the riverfront celebration called Moon Tunes, which they have every month. And I happened to notice all of the trees around this beautiful new stage structure. All of the trees were ash trees, and they're all declining terribly. It's going to be a terrible thing for them, but we can avoid stuff like that by getting some planting going ahead of time. So thank you, John.
Thank you, Pam. Other comments or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Item 5.5 is the Community Forestry Corps Program Member.
I'd make a motion to approve the host site agreement and authorize and direct the city manager to execute.
I'll second that.
We have a motion by Michelle, a second from Aaron. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Oh, I'm sorry, George, go ahead.
John, you have any comments on this
Yeah, go ahead.
forestry member? I think they're doing what they should be doing, right?
Yeah, the mayor and council. So yeah, this member would continue the work that our previous member Katie did that's over this past term. So a lot of it will be spent on tree planting and doing resident education, as well as updating our tree inventory. We're probably about 75% of the way there with our past member. So this new member would continue that work. One difference is this member is a part-time person, whereas before we had a full-time member, but otherwise very similar positions. And it is a different person, but very similar work tasks.
And what is the city's cost for this person?
The cost to us is simply staff time for supervising. We will provide a vehicle for them to do their duties. I think it's going to be probably necessary to give them a mobile phone and a computer to use. But in terms of out of very little minimal costs. I'd say under $300 for the year for us.
Hire about 5 more if you can.
Yes.
I like the price of them.
And,
Go ahead, Pam.
and have them be as energetic as Katie was.
Yeah. I met Katie this summer. She was inventorying my trees on my boulevard, and her knowledge level of the tree species was amazing because she could literally look across the street and say, yeah, that one's an ash, that one's an elm, that one's an oak. And I was impressed, you know, and the way she was doing it, she just had an iPad and she was just tapping away, just mapping it all out. So, and you said 75% of the tree inventory is completed so far?
Thereabouts, yes.
Okay.
So yeah, all basically all of our trees are inventoried, but this has been 5 years since they were last done. So we're going through and marking the ones that have died, been planted, etc.
Very good. Thank you. Any other comments or questions?
I have a comment.
Go ahead.
I really like your face mask. It's irrelevant to the topic, but I
Thank
like
you.
it.
This was come from the Friendship Center. So
Awesome.
Okay.
Okay, any other comments or questions?
I can't see it, but it looks good. I'll take it.
It's superhero themed, George. It's
Oh,
awesome.
okay.
All righty. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Item 5.6 is the license agreement with WSU for the Bridges Program.
Make a motion to approve the license agreement and authorize city staff to execute the agreement.
I'll second that.
We have a motion from Michelle, a second from Aaron. Any discussion? Go ahead, Michelle.
I just think this is one of the perfect examples of why living in a college town is so wonderful. Because we have free student-led, faculty-guided, interprofessional free health services to the community, operating out of a city facility, which gives not only the students an opportunity to practice their skill, but gives people who maybe are underserved or uncomfortable in certain settings an opportunity to get some health care or suggestions or input or someone to listen to them talk. So I can't thank WSU enough or the staff for working on this, because I think it is one of those really excellent collaborations we get from WSU.
Thank you, Michelle.
Mayor, I'll add to that. I've had the opportunity to take advantage of some of their services firsthand and met with Amy Kaler and a few of the staff there. And her and her people are just incredible. We're like, as Michelle said, it's a great asset that Winona has. We're very fortunate.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Aaron. Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Item 7.1 is council concerns.
Start with Councilmember Borzakowski.
Thank you, Mayor. I believe everyone on council and the mayor as well, we may have received an email from a gentleman talking about rerouting truck traffic on Highway 43. I wish Brian was here, but you can pass the word on to him there. That was brought up a few years back, and I believe it was presented to MnDOT, where they really didn't care for that plan. I know there were a couple of business people in town as well too, that they may have talked with Brian or trying to get the trucks off of Highway 43 coming through town. And I think now next year, when we're going to be doing this extensive reconstruction of Mankato Avenue, I think this might maybe be a good route for MnDOT to say, hey, all heavy truck traffic, take the Pelzer Street and 61, and maybe it'll get something that they'll get used to, because the last thing that you're going to need is all these 75, 80, 100 trucks a day barreling through while they're trying to construct that. So I think we should really give that a strong push and, to get that rerouted. And it definitely makes sense. So it's a few minutes longer, but you do a lot less stopping. And then also, I would just like to thank downtown Winona businessman Dave Stoltman and his painter, Al Light. They spruced up the front end of a downtown building. Very beautiful over the weekend, and it's very, very eye-catching. Thank you to them for helping out beautify downtown Winona. Thank you.
Thank you, George. Councilmember Alexander.
I just want to congratulate the Main Street program and the chamber for a successful weekend. Couldn't have better weather. The food was delightful. I brought some giant pig head cookies home to my nieces and nephews. So big that I could split them between 6 kids. It was great. I had fun sitting with Scott and judging our local restaurants' food. I don't think we had a bad meal.
Nope.
It was a lot of fun, and it was fun to be out on a perfect fall day. I know it's not technically fall yet, but it felt very fall-like. And then I think all of our schools are back in session now. So just a reminder, I think I brought this up last time, watch out for those little people. They're everywhere. Getting on and off buses, jumping between cars, riding bikes. It's nice to see them out again, being social, but that's all I have.
Thank you, Michelle. Councilmember Item.
Yes, I would like to thank the Winona Recreation Alliance and the Access Fund. The volunteers went up Sugarloaf Trail and repaired that trail up there a couple weekends ago. The idea of repairing a trail seems kind of vague until you see the damage that people can do just by walking.
Yeah.
And that is a trail that's extremely popular. I was up there this weekend and I saw that it was popular because there were at least 40 or 50 people walking up there in the time that I was walking. Some were coming up, some were coming down, some of them were passing me high speed as I trudged up. But I just want to thank the volunteers that did that. It's very hard work to repair the erosion and repair the way the water flows and all of that. So thank you very much. I would like to know though, do we have plans to seed or replant the bare ground that was left from that repair?
Mayor and council, I'll have staff look into that. I think they did a borrow pit. I assume they did a borrow pit where they took dirt from one area to replace another. I assume is that what you're talking about?
Oh, I'm talking about seeding, plants, seeds.
So
Got it.
To replant it so that it does not erode again.
Yes,
Yeah.
got it.
Yeah.
So Pam, usually what they're doing is they're just putting organic matter from the area back onto that to help the seedlings that are already in the ground grow back out so it's natural again.
Okay.
So
Okay.
at least that's my experience with the IMBA trail standards.
So that's what you were referring to.
So typically that's what
Borrow
what's called a borrow pit. So they'll take land, dirt, seed, grass, undergrowth, take it from one area, move it to another spot, called a borrow pit. And then that will actually naturally reseed that area that we want to help with water flow or correct the erosion of the trail. But again, Pam, I'll confirm to make sure that we're doing that.
Thank you very much. That's all.
Is that it? Thanks, Pam. Councilmember Young.
Councilfriend Michelle, you took the words right out of my mouth, but not the memory of the juicy pork flavor. So it was a fantastic weekend and it was great to be outside and boy, just be together. And fantastic. That's all.
Thank you. Councilmember Rupinsky.
None at this time, Mayor.
Okay, very good.
Moving on to the consent agenda, there are 4 items. Approval of the minutes from the August 16th and 27th meetings. The final adoption of an ordinance to regulate motorized foot scooters, and 2 claims against the city, one by Winona State and one by Jenna Dale.
I'd make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second that.
We have a motion by Michelle, second by George. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Then the time being 7:48 and there being no further business to come before the council this evening, I move to adjourn.
I will second that.
Motion from Michelle, second from George. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone.